Hey guys, this is Gatsby with Tape, and today you join me for episode 29 of Fall of Kerbin. And today, we mount our last stand. We've deployed ourselves a light M3 Minotaur, and of course, 3 C3 Cerberuses, the glorious medium tank of the United States of Cthenia. Rather beautiful, actually. I quite like that tank. It's probably one of my favorites for controllability and fight worthiness. But of course, we start by scouting ahead with our little M3. Turns out that the seams between the bits of the cities are a little bumpy, and this bounces around a little bit, but it handles it fine, of course. That's the precision United States of Cthenia engineering we've got there. Anyway, we get to the end of this first street, and there's nothing on any of the side streets. And we check down this street at the end, and there's nothing there, so we're safe to bring up our column of C3s. So yes, the entry to the city goes unopposed, which is nice. And now the C3s roll forward, going over the bumpy terrain, having a little trouble. They rock forward a lot when they go up hills. I don't really know why. Well, no, I do. It's a tactical thing. It's called tactical rocking. You can Google it, but don't, because it's too secret. It's called tactical rocking, and it's the best thing for tanks. Yeah. No, I don't know why they do that, but they get over it fine. They just bounce a bit. Anyway, so yes, we of course bring them right up to the M3, and the M3 heads forward trying to find someone else. I would not want to be the commander of one of these little M3 tanks. Like, you go ahead and maybe die, and then we'll bring in the real guns. I'm sure they're very unhappy about that. But they know that they will die gloriously and find their way to Valhalla. I don't know why Valhalla's found its way into Cthenian lore, but it has. Valhalla's where my soldiers go. Anyway, we do round this corner, and through kind of like a gap in the street, we see a little Nania, and my commander clocks it, opens up with some 20 mils. There's a couple of explosions, but no real damage. These 20 mil rounds are pretty anemic. But instead of bringing up the column of tanks to deal with that, I decided just to push on to get a better scope of the battlefield, so I knew what was happening. And when I was going to turn into this street, it turns out it's just an alleyway, but it kind of reveals pretty much all of the enemy tanks to me. So my tank opens up on this Nania. There's actually an adder way down at the bottom of that street, which, as you know, is a terrifying prospect. They're rather deadly. But I do get a few shots off at the Nania, and I actually see an emplacement sitting there, and I can shoot it from behind. So the guard mode tries to do it, but it's pretty terrible, so I fire myself, and it even takes a few rounds just to get through the command pod. These are not particularly effective rounds. But yes, so we've actually found a pretty good firing solution to take out a lot of the enemy tanks. So we bring up our C3s, and I think this is going to be my first attack vector through this alleyway, because it doesn't seem like it would be something Penguin was expecting, so yeah. I decide first to bring up the M3 to kind of plug the hole and get a few shots off and be a distraction, but it kind of gets stuck on one of my tanks here. Just sort of wedged, so I move that forward. And then we can move up the M3, try and ram it down that alleyway, get a few shots off, and be mostly a distraction slash a human shield. We got ethics in Cthenia. So yeah, it's gonna go down the alley. It's gonna open fire, maybe even onto the adder right at the bottom of the street, and then we're gonna bring up another tank behind it and start shooting with some real guns. It sort of went well, then I crashed into a wall and started taking serious fire, so, you know, I'm not a great driver. It really just bounced off. But anyway, I bring up the tank, I rush forward, I'm gonna get behind that, but it's just as I get there, it's shredded by the adder, because those rounds are unbelievable. They're super velocity 75mm. I get one shot off at a Nania, and I'm pretty sure I just killed it with that one shot. So I back up a little bit in just sort of terror of what might happen, and then turn around and rush forward again, because I was just sort of panicking. But I think I killed that Nania with one shot, so I'm pretty happy about that. But then I push forward again so that it can face the adder. I'm going to bring up another tank to try and shoot next to it and also try and kill the adder, because the adders are superior in firepower to my Cerberuses. So the more guns, the better. We start getting some shots away. My first shot misses, and I think the adder's first shot does as well. The adder's second shot, however, really does find its mark and shakes the whole tank, almost destroying it in one shot. I'm going to move up another tank, but sometimes these are a little janky to control, so it takes me, I think, just too long to really get up there, while that other tank is just being ripped apart. But eventually I get it moving forward, and I'm going to use the debris of that now destroyed tank, because, yeah, the 75mm is just just a beast. But I'm going to use the debris of this tank as cover to try and protect me from some of those shots, just long enough to take out that adder, because if I can take it out, there are no other big guns in the city except emplacements, which means I might have a chance of pushing them out of this quadrant. I'm down to 1/4 of the city now, and I really want to push them out, but I have to say, it's not looking great. I only have 2 tanks left. But the cover is working. You can see this, the enemy tank its rounds are mostly hitting little bits of armor on the floor, and my shots start finding their mark and start actually putting some damage to the tank. There's been some pretty serious explosions. We get another one away. It finds its mark. There is a fantastic explosion and a rather odd noise, actually. That didn't sound quite so much like a normal explosion. But still, I'm happy with any damage. A round almost hits my tank, but does seem to be deflected by some of that armor on the floor. And we get the final shot. We kill the adder. It is defeated. And now I believe there are just 3 Nanias and some emplacements left. I only have 2 centaurs, so it's still all to play for. But I'm pretty happy I managed to do that much damage, take out that adder, that emplacement, and that Nania, all for the loss of 1 C3 and 1 M3. So yes, anyway, we formed these up on the street adjacent to this, and we're going to rush down and see if there's anything else around the street, because basically Penguin seems to group up his tanks quite a lot, because I don't know, that seems like a pretty good tactic, actually, keeping all your tanks together so there's a lot of concentrated firepower. I'm more of a sneaky ambush, so I can watch it and just laugh when I see the streets he's about to drive down. I'm like, you're gonna die! I'm more about humor in war. Anyway, so we rush down, and sure enough, we actually do find an Nania just tucked away in this little alcove. My tanks start firing. Annoyingly, one of my tanks is directly behind one of my other tanks. Does shoot the Cerberus, but doesn't do any damage. But the Nania starts lighting this up, so I'm trying to rush this forward, trying to turn burn together off. I've kind of forgotten how you do that quickly, but eventually I figured out while my tank is just taking a ridiculous amount of fire. I rush forward, I switch guard mode on. You can just see armor pieces flying off my tank. It's taking serious damage. There's too much smoke and explosions to even see what's going on. But when the smoke clears, my tank is extremely damaged, but there is just nothing left of the Nania, barely even debris. It's just a piece of metal on the floor. That's what you get for messing with Carthenia. But I am down a tank. Yes, we did lose another one. These Nanias are incredibly effective in the city with a high frequency firing guns. So I only have 1 tank, slightly damaged, to rush forward with. I see the adder, I know it's dead. I line up a shot with to try and take out the Nania, but my guard mode is trying to turn the other way, so I manually control the gun, but I get shot from behind. I have no idea what that is. I thought the adder was dead. In the explosions I can barely see, but I get 1 shot away. I don't see if it lands before I'm just eviscerated by, it seems like the Nania is shooting me and something from behind shooting me. Now, I was absolutely certain that that adder was dead, so you can imagine my rage at being shot from behind. I switched to it angrily to figure out what nonsense is going on here, not noticing there's an emplacement right there which was doing the shooting. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm like, what? Why is this still shooting? But it wasn't. It was, of course, that emplacement over there was lighting me up behind. Penguin is rather sneaky, and did manage to finish off my final tank before I could take out the rest of his forces. I really didn't see that coming. That was some poor planning on my part. But as we see here, it's still firing. These fire incredibly fast. They're very unarmored, but they do a very good job of firing quickly. So the battle is lost, but let's take a look through some of the damaged tanks. This is the, I think the first Nania we took out. This is one that wasn't hit at all. This is the one I did manage to get that shot that you saw just through all the explosions. That last shot I took did absolutely eviscerate this tank. I'm so happy with how that came out. It is absolutely destroyed. Now Penguin only has 1 Nania and 2 emplacements left. But of course he will have more in his next turn to come and try and take the city and vanquish the Carthenians forever. So we are putting up our final defense, our true last stand. We've deployed 2 TD2 Sirens with their 88mm guns. From our experience in this current urban combat, these seem to be by far the superior tank destroyers, partly because my TD2s just keep rotating for no reason, but mostly because they just fire very quickly. The TD2s aren't massively accurate. They're mostly for destroying super heavy tanks, which we've already done with a C3 Centaur. So these seem like the much better investment. They also only cost 5 points instead of, I think, 11 or 10 or something. So yes, we've deployed 2 of these to defend our streets, to fight them in the streets and nowhere else, because we're now just fighting them in streets. Yes, it is looking rather dark for Cathenia. But this isn't all we're deploying. We're not just deploying 2 TD2 Sirens, we're also deploying some M4 Griffins. These are my light tanks. Yes, I haven't used them at all, but I think they might do quite a good job in the city. They have these 37mm guns, they're light armor, they're very small, and I think these would be a good supplement to those big guns. So this is my final defense. This may well be over in Penguin's next turn. If he can overthrow these defenses, all will be lost, and Cathenia will fall to the Kruolan Union. So, if I don't see you next time, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Fall of Kerbin.